Yesterday, we highlighted 11 games from the Steam Winter Sale's over 3,400 games that are on sale for less than $5. And today we're back to give you 11 more suggestions for games that you might not notice in the shuffle and bump of a Steam sale that are even under $4. But before we get to that, let me remind or inform you that we're running a giveaway this month, giving out 2 Steam games a day to subscribe commenters on the daily videos. And when we hit 22,000 subscribers, and every 1,000 after that, we'll be giving away an additional 25 games. So comment down below which of these games you're interested in to enter. Now, onto the list. We're starting the list off with a banger. And for $2.39, Rounds is a barrel of fun. You and a friend can battle it up in an arena-style brawler, kind of like Super Smash Bros., except without all those crazy weapons, and with lots shorter lives. Oh, well, without all the crazy weapons to start with. After each round, the loser gains a new power. That might make them shoot a shotgun, or gain lifesteal, or occasionally explode for 10 seconds, or dozens of other powers that will stack as more powers are gained. First to 10 wins. And that sounds good and all, but the devs have abandoned it. And that is sad, yes, but the modding community has picked it up and run with it. With a few minutes of downloading, you can expand it to 4 or more players, add a ton more maps and powers and soundtracks, and the game goes from good to crazy. And if you want a guide on how to install all of that, let me know in the comments. But for $2.39, even the base game is worth it. One game that needs no mods. Its only introduction is go play it just because. Crypt of the Necrodancer's a roguelike, sound-alike, dungeon fight. A dungeon crawl rhythm game? But don't you dare call it oh, I've lost the beat. Oh, no. But it's got heroes that are unlockable, overpowered attacks that are unblockable, and a bangin' soundtrack that includes a yodeler when you get near the shopkeeper on the level. Just be careful to only move and attack on the beats, or as in Russia, the beat will drop you. And for $2.99, if you're a fan of rhythm games or of dungeon crawlers, or certainly if you're a fan of both, it's probably a good idea to try it out. Just don't ask me to rap anytime soon. If you're just too happy all the time and occasionally need a kick in the stomach, or if you're a psychopath that only takes joy from humiliating and harming people, or if you like a good resource management game with very dark theme, it doesn't get much darker for another 38,000 years. In this war of mine, you're in the midst of heavy fighting, caught up in the middle of a war. But you're not a steroid-drugged soldier or a steel-veined sniper or a cunning general. You're a civilian, just trying to survive. And maybe you're taking care of children and they're too young to help very much. You'll be given choices, like, for instance, to steal medicine from the elderly to heal your housemates, or let them maybe get better in a week, maybe. Or help a young woman escape marauders and maybe die. Or help some kid's mom out of a collapsed building, even though it costs all of the actions for that day. Or just tell them no, your mom's going to die. Maybe you have to starve for a few days so you can catch enough rats to start eating rat stew occasionally. So yeah, great game, but not for everyone. On a lighter note, something about roguelikes just appeals to me, and interesting roguelikes get my attention every time. So Dicey Dungeons is a dungeon crawl with a little twist. Your actions are dictated by dice that you roll. Each round of combat, you'll roll your dice and assign them to your weapons. Maybe you roll high and your sword does more damage, or you roll low and you decide to use your shield this round. But the great thing is that rolling high is not always what you want. And after progressing into a run for a few levels, you'll be able to mitigate bad rolls very easily. Or maybe just roll so many dice that it doesn't even matter. Or maybe you just change the dice, or split them, or just use them anyway. And there are tons of different classes to play that have vastly different playstyles, and challenge modes that you can unlock that change the game even more. It's got a lot more to it, and I highly recommend Dicey Dungeons for only $3.74. Picnic Zoo is a fun little platformer where you get to run around in the fresh open air and jump and frolic and commit treason and make friends and overthrow a corrupt government and help those in need. You'll gather up money and unlock new hats and discover why the people in the town all fear you as the monster of legend, and maybe one day you'll gain your heart's desire: arms. Panic in the Canoe is a great puzzle-solving platformer, and for only $3.24, it's a steal, which is exactly what you can do in the game too. Now, for those of you allergic to pets, you might want to skip this one, but for our inventory Tetris-loving friends, Cats Organized Neatly is an adorable puzzle game where you need to place the cats in the grid so they don't overlap the edge or each other. And though it starts out fairly easily, once you've unlocked a dozen or so cat shapes, things get quite hairy. Also, there's adorable purring sounds when you click on them. I just can't even. Oh, and for those of you that are not cat people, but the game still sounds interesting, there's also Dogs Organized Neatly, which is similar, but with dogs and different puzzles. So on our last list, we talked about Iron Brigade, a tower defense game where you're the biggest of the towers. But the devs that made it weren't able to keep the rights to publish a sequel, apparently, or something, so they left, and they made their own sequel called Sanctum. But let me suggest to you check out that sequel's sequel, Sanctum II. It's different from Iron Brigade in that it's more focused on you building walls and paths for the enemies, and sure, building turrets along the way, but you're also able to move more quickly and shoot more freely. So, less of a third-person mech tower defense and more of a first-person tower defense. Lots of options and customizability, and a thick level system gives Sanctum II a lot of legs for only $2.99. And if you like the sound of cats or dogs organized neatly, but just the thought gives you hives, maybe check out Save Room. It is just inventory Tetris. Literally. They took the unintentional minigame and made it the whole game. You're given a selection of items and have to fit them into the space provided. Maybe you have to combine items, load the guns so you don't need to store the bullets separately, and craft health sprays to make it all fit into your attaché. And for only $2.09, it can almost fit into anybody's stocking. There are lots of great-looking AAA games out there that are visually stunning. But if you look too long at their narrative, it's as ugly as homemade sin. Plot holes and motivationless quests. Ugh. But if the story is the thing that gets you up in the morning, Avernum Escape from the Pit, and honestly any of the Blades of Exile or Avernum series, are chock-a-block with story. The narrative is rich, the world is full, and the tactical turn-based combat is chunky and rewarding. You might just decide to wander around and find a boat, for example, abandoned on the river. But if you look around a bit more around that boat, you'll find a tiny story about why it's there. And there are hundreds of these tiny stories crafted by a D&D DM of old. It doesn't move the main story along, but it makes the world come to life and feel lived in. It encourages and rewards exploration for exploration's sake, and the main story is amazing. If you like crunchy RPGs and don't need flash and glamour, Avernum is the pit for you. And last on this list is a VR game that makes fantastic use of the VR's ability. A Fisherman's Tale is about a lighthouse that's got a miniature of itself inside of itself, which in turn contains another mini-miniature of the lighthouse. And if, let's say, for example, you take off the roof of the lighthouse mini, the roof of the big lighthouse gets removed, and you can see a huge U above you, holding the roof that you just took off below you, above you, but big. This allows you to do weird things, like add a tiny hat to the mini lighthouse, and have the huge you give yourself a normal-sized hat to give to the miniature fish, who you can then crawl into if you hold the miniature fish in front of the mini lighthouse. It's hard to explain without just showing you. So it's good that there's a video right now to further explain it. But for $3.89, a Fisherman's Tale is a great buy for any VR enthusiast. So what games are on your list this year? Did we forget any that you'd like to highlight? Let us know in the comments, and do indeed comment, as that will also enter you in our daily giveaway for 2 Steam games. And until tomorrow, I'll play with you again later.